Most people have a stressful life. And if you look at stress, stress happens as a result of things not fitting your pictures. Perfection is the lowest standard. And the reason it's the lowest standard is because it's unattainable. Failure is not taking the step. Failure is not picking up the bat and swinging it at life. Failure is getting to the end of this game and regretting what we didn't do. I'm a born entrepreneur. I built several dozen companies, half of which before the age of 30. I'm a best-selling author, philosopher, and explorer of consciousness. My name is Peter Sage, and these are my 10 rules for success. Probably the most important way to encourage yourself to work harder is to increase your why. You see, there's a psychological fact that people do things for reasons. Now, they may not be your reasons and they may not be my reasons, but everybody does things for reasons. And so what you do when you're working harder or you're working on a project, you're doing it because there's a reason for it. Now, if your motivation is low, it's because the reason that you're doing it doesn't resonate at a high level. So how do you increase your why? Well, one of the ways that I found is by focusing on what is the outcome of what it is that you're doing and how can that serve beyond you to people that you care about or the world at large. People can be motivated by themselves up to a point, but when you start motivating yourself because of what you can contribute, you tap into a deeper level of motivation. You know, it's a fact, if you look at the New York Marathon, the Boston Marathon, the London Marathon, there's more people that run those marathons for the first time running for other people, causes, charities. And think about how much it would take to motivate yourself if you've never ran a marathon before to go and train for one. You know, and getting up when you need to do a 20K or a 15-mile training run and it's cold and wet and miserable and you haven't eaten properly and you're tired. But you've got to go do it anyway. If we're doing it for ourselves, a lot of the time we can quit. But if we're doing it for others, there's something that compels us. You know, if you've got to get up early to go get yourself to a certain place and you're not feeling motivated, it's hard. But if you've got to get up and go because your boss will fire you if you don't, or you've got to pick the kids up from the airport, there's a different reason. So focus on what it is that is your why and check in. Is it self-serving, which is limiting in its power? Or is it more ethnocentric, whereby I'm doing it for a reason and find a reason to be able to contribute with what it is that you're doing? Over time, and especially in personal development, many people have put different emphasis on different buzzwords. Things like persistence and desire and determination. Words that usually have a lot of strength behind them. Words that really have a connotation to, being able to battle through. And while things like desire, persistence, determination, etc. are very useful, they're useful for when we go through obstacles, when we require an immediate injection of force to try and break through certain levels of limitation. In other words, if we are sitting there as a victim of life and we want to be able to break out and take charge of our own circumstances, words like persistence and desire and being able to break through are valuable words. But I'd like to give you an insight into a word that I think is far more powerful. And this word has been given to us throughout the ages by prophets, scholars, religious teachers, spiritual masters, consistently since the dawn of written civilization. And that is the word surrender. The word surrender is inherent into letting go of resistance. If you think of, for example, stress, most people have a stressful life. And if you look at stress, stress happens as a result of things not fitting your pictures. In other words, if you take the scientific definition, it's two objects going against each other with opposing forces in opposite directions. Not like, for example, if you take a dance, and I'm doing a salsa dance, and I take a lady on an outside turn, then we're going in opposite directions. And that's fine, you're going with the flow. But if she's trying to move on an inside turn and I'm doing an outside turn, you have a friction, a resistance, and that's going to end up in a broken wrist. So, being able to surrender at that point has a different connotation. So let's look into it a little more. If we're trying to force our way through life, battling through, surrender is not an option for most people. But if we start to look deeper and know that the wisdom behind the intelligence that governs a lot of the flow of the river of life, let's call it the current of life, has an innate level of intelligence that goes beyond what we can comprehend consciously. How do I know that? Very simple. Cut your finger and consciously try to stop it from healing. Yeah, there's something smarter than us that's at work there. Whereas, if we were to surrender to the wisdom of the current of the river, if we were to surrender to that level of intelligence, then what generally happens is that a solution to our problems will present itself. If you want to flow with the wisdom of the current, know that if life takes a left turn, which it has to, you look at any river from the air, and regardless of the topography, regardless of where you are on the planet, they all follow the same pattern. They wind, just like the roads around me in the background here. They all wind in a different pattern. So if you have a goal in mind, and you've gone through persistence, you've gone through determination, and it's still struggling, try surrendering to the inevitability of it happening by flowing with the wisdom of the current. And if you do that and you tap into that innate level of wisdom that has been passed down through the ages, you'll start to see surrender as alignment with the current rather than resisting it. If we understand that for the majority of people on the planet, money is nothing more than a reflection of the value that they've added, then we start to understand that what has to come first is the value, not going around chasing money. If you chase money, you'll chase your tail because you're chasing the consequence of something that hasn't happened yet. Does that make sense? So if you look at it under that context, then how do you start a business with no money? Well, you don't ask yourself, where do I get money? You ask yourself a better question. You say, where is it that I can add value? How can I add value? What is it that I can contribute that would cause somebody to be able to give me what it is that I want without just shelling out a wad of cash? That's the easy way. That's all money is an arbitrary medium of exchange to measure different levels of value. That's pretty much it. So if we don't have access to money, then what we have to do is come up with ways we can add value, and therefore we shortcut the process. One of the patterns that I'm noticing here, Eric, in a lot of consistent ways with new entrepreneurs, is that they're covering up their lack of ability to handle uncertainty by doing research under the guise of chasing perfectionism.
Yeah.
Right? That's like saying, well, listen, I'm going to read all the books on darts that I can read so that my first dart is going to be a bullseye.
Yeah.
That doesn't work. Get up, stand up to the plate, or the oche, throw the dart, and the first one may miss the board. But then you adjust. You throw the second one, it gets a little closer. You throw the third one, it gets a little closer. Now, eventually, you're going to be getting bullseyes because you're used to throwing, not used to reading books on darts.
You experience getting better on this one, yeah. So.
See, if I'm trying to be perfect, then to all you perfectionist people out there, listen to me. Yeah, again, another one of my mentors I've spent on many years with, Tony Robbins, right, will tell you, perfection is the lowest standard. And the reason it's the lowest standard is because it's unattainable. So why are you trying to be perfect? By being perfect, you guarantee you never will be.
Yeah, most people try to be perfect, try to do this exactly.
No, most people are afraid of being imperfect.
But I think this is go to the procrastination problem. They procrastinate
under the guise of research.
Yeah.
Oh, I'll just do 2 more focus groups. Oh, I'll just do another hour's surfing to see if there's any other ideas I can benchmark. No. Shut up, do your research, limit it, get in the game, swing the bat, then reassess. Yeah. But at least you're in the game. Set yourself up to win. Now, this may sound easy, but let me give you some insight into brain chemistry. Now, one of my good friends, Dave Asprey from the Bulletproof team, amazing man, shared this with me, and that is that the brain, although it's 1/50th of the body weight, takes up 20% of the calories. 20% of the energy in your body goes to run your brain. Now, if that energy is low, guess what? You feel demotivated. And a lot of the time, people try and rely on willpower, but willpower isn't on demand. Willpower has cycles based upon whether your brain is being fed the energy it needs. So if you are feeling down and thinking, I was going to commit to that, but I can't, I'm just not in the mood, and you don't want to work harder, then first things first, go check your brain chemistry. Get yourself some fast sugars into the diet, some high quality brain fuel to be able to perk yourself back up at that level, then go do it. Another great way of setting yourself up to win is that when you're in the mood to do something, prepare something for when you're going to be doing the project. In other words, I'll give you an example. If you go to bed at night, put your gym kit at the bottom of the bed if you're going to the gym in the morning. Research has shown if you get out of bed and that gym kit is more than 20 seconds away, You're not likely to make it if you're not in the mood. But if your gym kit is at the foot of the bed and you get out and the first thing you do is put it on, you're ahead of the game. Set yourself up to win. Yeah, so when I'm in the mood and I am energized, my brain chemistry is high and I'm associated to what I'm doing, do something in that moment to take action towards setting yourself up for when you know predictably that cycle is going to dip. Because you can't be in uptime all the while. That's a superhuman myth.
Well, here's the tip. It's not looking for more sales. It's not getting up earlier and making calls. It's not knocking on doors. The fastest way to make money is to raise your self-worth. How do you raise your self-worth? Check your peer group. If you upgrade your peer group, you will upgrade your self-worth. Case closed. What do I mean by that? Well, if you hang around with 10 drug addicts, I've got news for you. The law of conformity says you'll likely become the 11th. If you hang around with 10 highly motivated, self-made multimillionaires that are up and busy about on purpose with something and inspired to go out and create value, you'll likely become the 11th. You see, raise your self-esteem, trade your peer group, and ask yourself the question, how can I add value? And all of a sudden you look over your shoulder one day and think, wow, where did that money come from? Because now you're focusing on what you can give, which is the byproduct or a consequence of that is money coming in, rather than sitting in front of the fire and bitching about the fact that it's cold, and if only you had some heat, you'll go outside and fetch some wood. That doesn't work. You want more money? Become a person of value. Upgrade your self-worth, mix with the people that already have what it is that you want, contribute and adding value, and I guarantee money won't be far behind. If you are able to understand that you get to choose the meaning of what happens, you get to take responsibility for your data processing of the 5 senses. You know, 2 men sat behind prison bars, one saw mud, the other saw stars. The condition is identical in both scenarios. How one chooses to interpret that condition determines whether or not you go off on a track towards empowerment or whether you go off on a track that becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy of more stress and resentment with your current life condition. You know, if you've ever had a relationship with somebody or an intimate relationship where, for example, they left you, same scenario, 2 different ways of looking at it. One, you can turn around and say, well, I'm clearly no good, so they left me. Or you can say, well, thank God they went, so they made room for somebody who's right. Next! Now just stay with that example for a second. You suddenly go out and, a year later, 6 months down the line, whatever it is, if I'm on the first scenario, I'm no good, so they left me, and that's my belief. That's all it is. Has nothing to do with the actual event. The event is the event. But if I'm processing my data management through the filter or the belief or the choice of I'm no good, so they left me, because that's my story, that's my upbringing, that's my social conditioning, that's my parents, that's my fill in the blank. Yeah, we all have a story, my friends. Yeah. Then the next time I go to meet somebody or I'm introduced to somebody, what are my default thoughts? Oh, I wonder if this person thinks I'm good enough. Now, if that's your starting place, I can predict what's going to happen over the next 2 dates, if you get to date number 2, that is. Whereas if you turn around at if we rewind 6 months before and you say, next, thank goodness that person went, so they made room for somebody who's right. And that is your default level of processing, because it's a choice. Then next time you meet somebody, what is your default level of being able to interact? Right? Well, I wonder if this person's going to be fortunate enough to spend some time with me. And as long as it comes from a place of authenticity, not arrogance, because you're feeling empowered, not disempowered, your second date's going to be a very different experience. You understand what I'm saying? We create our interpretation of meaning of the world irrespective of the external circumstances. If I'm going to do business with somebody, I want to do business with somebody I like and somebody I trust. We all want to be in business with those people. So what does it take to like somebody and trust somebody? If you're putting on some level of fake rapport skills because you've learned some NLP technique on how to be closely in alignment with somebody who's visual versus auditory or kinesthetic, then that's going to get you in the door, but there's an inherent level of falseness with that. Sincerity comes from a level of empathy and intention that is there to express who you are to serve your client. If you don't have the ability to respect your time, nobody else will. Yeah. Now, it doesn't mean to say you got to be a jerk about it. There is something respectful about people who own their own time.
Yeah.
And if somebody calls me and says, or goes through my secretary to say they want a meeting, nobody gets access to time with me unless they send an agenda in advance, and we assess it as being mutually beneficial.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'm not going to be able to focus on what my mission is. I'm going to be serving everybody else's. Now, you see many people avoid that because they have a fear of rejection. They don't like saying no. I don't want to hurt somebody's feelings.
Yeah, this is the main problem. Like, you just give the time to someone else.
Well, that's not about them. That's about you, being driven by the good opinion of others and are scared of rejection because you think, it's a personal assault. Well, if you own yourself and you own your truth, it's very easy to say no to people. It's like, I've employed hundreds of people over the years in different businesses, and sometimes you've got to let go of people. And I don't see that as ruining their day. I see that as giving them an opportunity to be in a job that's better suited to them. Now, they may not see that at the time when they're focusing on scarcity.
Improve themselves,
or the fact that they don't have wages next week.
Yeah.
But I don't want them being in a place where they don't fit. And if they don't have the courage to recognize that and leave it, then I'm the guy that needs to help them. And 3 months down the line, when they hopefully get a better job, or find themselves in a better position, and they look back at the time when the transition point was there, they thank me for having the courage to make that decision for them if they didn't.
Yeah.
So I don't need the good opinion of others. If I'm walking my truth, and I'm always coming from a place of wanting to serve, it's not an it's not an egocentric position. I'm not like trying to say, well, screw you, my time's more important than yours. I'm saying, well, right now, this doesn't serve our outcome. It's got to be a level of being mutually beneficial. And if you need some time and this is a project you want my advice on, then I have an hourly rate that you can book. But if you're looking for free advice, I have a huge amount of information out there on YouTube that I do so that people that can't afford my time can have access to some benefit. But other than that, I'm very sorry, my time and my mission isn't aligned with where yours is right now.
Now, if there's one area that I see stopping so many people from living their dream, from fulfilling the potential that they were born to fulfill, it is getting over the fear of failure. So how do you do that? How do you take that fear and rip it out by the roots and throw it away so it never bothers you again? You start to understand what fear of failure actually is, because for many people, all it is being sucker punched by the good opinion of other people caring about what they think. You know how often that keeps us down? Do you know how much of a life is wasted caring about what we think other people are thinking? I mean, and the reality is this. You start as the number one A-list actor in your movie called Your Life. Do you not? Which means that everybody else is either a supporting cast or a film extra in the movie of your life, correct? But what does that really mean? We walk around thinking people look at us as the star in our movie, but they don't. Everybody else is living the same dream. They're walking around in the star of their own movie, and we're just a film extra in their movie. So if we stop taking the actions that we think will lead towards success because we think we're worried about what the good opinion of other people will do to us, I got news for you, so listen carefully. I don't get on my soapbox about many things, but I'm getting on it about this, guys. Nobody cares enough about you to bother to give an opinion because they're too busy being worried about what they think you're thinking of them. Failure is not taking the step. Failure is not picking up the bat and swinging it at life. Failure is getting to the end of this game and regretting what we didn't do. Failure is about saying, what if? Failure is lying on your deathbed thinking, oh, well, if I could go back and do fill in the blank. You know something? To me, failure isn't falling down. It's staying down when you've fallen. You have to fail by the definition of, I didn't succeed, in order so you can succeed. That's what life is about. It's not about taking it with you at the end. It's not about scorekeeping. I've probably failed more times than I've won, but I keep my average number of tries high. And do you know what happens? Guess what? You tap into a lesson of history that most people ignore, and that is this. It's the paradox of history. That those that risk the least in life usually end up with the least in life. And just because our brain won't tell us that when we have to pay a mortgage on Friday doesn't mean it isn't true. So get up and get in the game. Who you are right now watching this is as a result of your failures, not your successes. It is when we're tested, when the storm is ripping the branches off our tree, when the rain clouds are there and we think we've got nothing left. That's who we are at our best when we show up, when we're tested. The strongest trees grow in the strongest winds, not in the best soil. So next time you have an opportunity, next time you start to question whether you should step forward or not, oh, will it be a white square on the chessboard or a dark square on the... Who cares? Get in the game. Swing the bat. Be all you can be. Get up, and if anybody says, oh, you're doing that, or oh, you did that, oh, look at you failed, know this. They're failing in their judgment of you, not in your ability to pick up the bat and swing it again. That's the person you were born to be, my friends, right? That's the person who you are. You were born a miracle. You are good enough. You don't need me to tell you that. You already are. Get out there, get in the game, go embrace it. And if you fall over, pick yourself up, swing the bat again, and let's go play this game of life.
Thank you guys so much for watching. I made this video because Kevin Lai asked me to. So if there's a famous entrepreneur that you want me to profile next, leave in the comments below and I'll see what I can do. I'd also love to know, what did Peter say that had the biggest impact on you in your business or your life? What change you're gonna make after watching this video? Please leave in the comments and I'm gonna join in the discussion. Finally, I want to give a quick shout out to Jaslyn Purification. Thank you so much for picking up a copy of my book and making that awesome Facebook art that you posted. I really, really, really appreciate it. So thank you guys again for watching. I believe in you. I hope you continue to believe in yourself and whatever your one word is. Much love. I'll see you soon.
Determination, for me, is far more important than desire. Desire comes from a place of thinking, I need it, therefore the presupposition is I'm not good enough because I don't already have it. Determination is simply a case of, well, here's where I'm focused, here's where I'm going. Yeah, I don't need it, I'm just choosing to get it. And get out of the damn way because I'm moving. Questions direct our focus. And if you're not directing your own focus, I've got news for you. There's a lot of people that pay a lot of good money to Madison Avenue to figure out how to do it for you. Right. And that's not the life you want to live, being programmed by other people's agendas. And I liken the mind to a compass needle. It can only point in one direction at a time. And the challenge is, just like if we take a needle and magnetize it, like back in high school, you take a magnet, a power source, and you align it and keep stroking that needle in one continuous direction until that needle aligns to the magnetic field and becomes coherent, pointed, all of the ions point in one direction. It becomes magnetized. Now, our mind is very similar. If we are open to unconsciously being programmed, which unfortunately as human beings we are, we're a 24/7 constant adaptation machine. Our mind and our body. Now, we understand the body part, that's easy. The physical side of life everybody gets because they have experiential evidence of. Your body will adapt if you put it in McDonald's or if you put it in the gym. It doesn't mind, it will adapt accordingly. That's its job. But our mind is far more programmable, far quicker than our body. And if the strong force that's constantly magnetizing us is usually the media and our peer group. And if those two aren't optimal, then we're going to be sucked along for the ride and don't really magnetize our true north for ourselves. So by asking better questions, what it does, it shifts the direction of that needle. Now, the challenge is you can only do that for 10% of the time that you're conscious or sleeping awake, as how most people are 90% of the time. That's why when we're driving to work, we can't remember the last 2 kilometers on the freeway. That's what happened. But if we focus on being able to magnetize or take charge of which direction our compass needle is pointing, we have a chance to start reinventing ourselves. Because otherwise, again, you're going to be drifting, especially in that 90% of the time where we do things out of habit, unconsciously. That compass needle drifts back to its preconditioned magnetic north. And most of the time, that doesn't serve us. Whether it's media conditioned, peer group conditioned, society conditioned. Look out of your window, there's not many examples who we really want to emulate and become that surround us on a day-to-day basis.
There is a way, believe it or not, that you can actually be luckier. And it's far simpler than you realize, especially when you understand some of the science and the biochemistry and neurochemistry as to what's really going on. And when I say lucky, I'm talking about things just falling into place, seemingly so. Or you meet the right person, or the right deal lands on your plate. And a lot of this is actually you're able to set this up in a way where the odds are more in your favor. Just like if you're in a casino, life for some people is where you put enough quarters in the machine and you may get 3 cherries in a row, because there's so much going on in life, so many plates spinning simultaneously, that occasionally, yes, you'll just be lucky and get 3 cherries in a row. That happens. But more often than not, how do we stack the odds in our favor? If you go to the roulette table and you're betting black and red, the house will always win over time. Why? Because it's not 50-50. There's also a little green option called 0, which stacks the odds in the house's favor a little bit more than 50%. So mathematically, the house will always win. You may get lucky, but the house will always win over time. So how do you go from being a person spinning the wheel in life, hoping that it's going to land on your color, versus becoming the house whereby every single time, over time, ultimately things are going to work out in your favor? Well, let me share with you an incredible part of the human anatomy that allows that to happen. It's called the reticular activating system. And it's a part of the brain that has a very specific job to do, and it's usually misunderstood. But the reticular activating system is really the gatekeeper between the conscious and the unconscious mind. And it has a sway over what information it allows in from the sensory input. Now, how do we make the reticular activating system work for us when we want to be quote unquote lucky? Well, we need to understand that it does one job and one job only, primarily for the purposes of this video. And that is, it allows in to our conscious information that falls under 2 categories. One is information that can be harmful to us, and the other is information that we vote on it being relevant. So for example, let's talk about the first type of information, stuff that can be harmful. So we're driving along and we're somewhat unconscious, as most people are, what I call sleeping awake, which is why you tend to drive to work on your day off, because you've done it so many times, you're unconscious, you're moving forward just out of habit. But we tend to wake up just as the car in front of us brakes that little early, it snaps us out. That's because the reticular activating system is constantly scanning for something that could be danger, and it works in conjunction with another part of the brain called the amygdala, whose job is to really notice things that are negative or dangerous before positive. So the amygdala will notice that, flag it up to the reticular activating system, bring it into your conscious awareness, while everything else, meanwhile, is swept under the carpet. So, and the amygdala is a fascinating part of the brain. As I say, if you're walking past a tree 10,000 years ago and you miss an apple, no big deal. But if you miss a snake, it could be a big deal. So it's always scanning in conjunction with the reticular activating system to see if there's anything in our awareness that could be dangerous, harmful, or threaten us physically. So in terms of the other information, what we tell it is important. Now here's where we start getting interesting when we talk about getting lucky. See, the reticular activating system will, as a faithful servant, irrespective of the nature of the input, do its job. So if you, for example, our name, we know our name is important to us. So if we're at a party and we're having a conversation with somebody and there's lots of background conversations going on, but somebody the other side of the room happens to mention our name, in mid-conversation we will be pulled out and look over to see who mentioned our name across the room in the middle of another conversation. Why is that? It's because the reticular activating system is constantly scanning all of this information, and it's deleting, distorting, and generalizing 99% of it. Let's say, otherwise we'd be completely overwhelmed. And it's sweeping that under the carpet of our awareness, our conscious awareness, and just flagging up what's important. That's why we didn't hear somebody else's name, but we would hear our name. So if we tell the reticular activating system what is important, it will go and find it in the millions of bytes and bits of information a second that is being processed. So you could walk down the street and completely miss an opportunity because you haven't told the reticular activating system or your brain that it is relevant or important, even though it's looking at millions of pieces of information every second. Give you another example. If you have a 6-year-old daughter and she turns around and says, Daddy, please, I would love a bike for my birthday, please, that's all I want is a bike. And you're like, okay, honey, and you say to your wife, I've got to get our daughter a bike. And you're driving to work the next day, and all of a sudden you drive past a bike shop and you notice a bike shop on the way to work. Now, it's been there for the last 5 years, every day you've driven to work. You noticed it in your reticular activating system, but because you hadn't told your brain it was important, it swept it under the carpet of awareness and you didn't notice it in your conscious. But now you've said it's relevant, so it pulls it out of all of the information and says, hey, guess what? You think, wow, just the same as if you buy a car and you start seeing that car everywhere on the road. Of course it was there before, and there wasn't a half price sale on and everybody's bought the same car. No, you've now told your reticular activating system, this particular car, make, model, color, what have you, is now more relevant to me in my life, and then out of the hundreds or thousands of cars on the road, whenever it spots one, as it always did, it will flag it up. Yeah? Basic neuroscience. So how do we make that work for us? Well, if it's going to constantly, 24/7, look for all of the information that is out there that's beyond our conscious comprehension or our ability to process consciously, and start scanning, what a great opportunity that is. See, if I turn around and say, yeah, right now I'm looking for a business partner. I'm looking for a store to a premises, a vacant premises. I'm looking for a certain kind of property, and you say it's relevant. You're going to start noticing things like that while you're driving along in the process of normal conversations. When you're standing in a lineup at Starbucks, overhearing somebody talk about a business that's relevant to you, because you're telling it it's important.